I am Tom for Just One Pack, and this is AC on the short Alpha Clash podcast where I talk all things Alpha Clash on my way to work. Well, technically, I'm not on my way to work. I work from home today, but the story still goes. So, we are in a period now, which is best known colloquially here as the cucumber period, which is not really saying much in any other language, but it does mean that we are sort of in between things happening, and there's a quiet period, so we have to grasp at straws to find good stories. Well, I would rather look at it as we have now time to delve into a little bit of the more interesting bits that we might overlook on a day-to-day basis. So, where are we at right now? Well, we're in the period where the news about the PvE has come out. The awakening is the season of awakenings is, as far as I can tell, is petering off a little bit. We're moving into a summer holiday period where people are, well, on holiday, right? And we already had these PvE news. Now, we haven't yet received, that might be because Rising Empire Studio is going on summer holiday, or because we've just come out of the con season with all the conventions. Now, we haven't yet reached the point where we'll get to know a lot more about the next set coming out. We want to get more news on that, but that will come later. Also, the PvE is not out yet. We have to wait about a month or two for that. So we're sort of in the in-between period. So that gives me the chance to talk about a completely different topic, as I mentioned. And I want to talk about the winning of the game. So there is this notion that when we teach people game, or TCG, we tell them that it's about reducing your opponent's life total to 0, which is true. I'm not saying that it isn't. Only there has been a joke in sort of the Magic community that playing big monsters to attack your opponent to 0 is sort of the alternate win condition. But now, instead of actually doing that, you trick your way to do that in so many different ways, right? Now, that is both true and not true. You still win mostly by dealing an amount of damage to your opponent. But having said that, there is some truth to it, right? So, what I would like to explore is... let me take you on a side note. In Alpha Clash, I would argue that the way to win is still reducing your opponent's life total to 0, right? Your opponent's contender, right? And that is usually done by attacking with clash cards, reducing it that way. But there are a few exceptions. Now, the way I got to think about this is that I'm building a Black Moxie deck which relies on big scary things to get out. Moxie has some of those. I'm trying to cheat them out early, but the effect is to attack. And one of the things I was looking at was what is there of big and scary things in Alpha Clash. One of the things I turned up is Alpha Aster, the original one from the Awakening. He has, not only is he big and scary, I think he's a 9/9 or something like that. He costs a lot. So that is not really, he's not really playable in that sense, but he also, in addition to getting out and being a big scary dude, he also sort of clears the board from everything else, every other clash card, and he puts into play a single character on each side. It has to be an alpha, but still. That is a big and scary creature that cannot be prevented from entering. It cannot be prevented from having this effect. It wipes the board, right? And if your opponent doesn't play alphas, they have nothing on the board. They do have very big mana, and he's observant and all that, but still, he's a pretty powerful card, and no one plays him. I was looking at him to put in my deck, but it doesn't fit there either. No one plays him at all. I was wondering how that came about. Then I started thinking about all this own meme and on how this alternate win condition actually works in Alpha Clash. So here's the thing. I would consider dealing the clash damage to your opponent is still the way you win. Almost all games I've seen have ended in that or in a draw, not saying anything about Krong versus Krong, right? So anything in Alpha Clash is dealing damage, right? However, there are a few strategies you could go and has been tested. I want to delve into those a bit. Now, one of them was Unrivaled, where Haven came out with her backpack as a contender. Now, I've mentioned this before. Haven's backpack is this strategy where you have the backpack out at the very beginning, and you sort of can't do anything about it as an opponent, right? And you put collection counters on it, and collection counters, when they reach a certain point, your collection is big enough, then you win. End of story. Now that's an alternate win condition. You gain a lot of collection count, which is for story nerds perfect. Her collecting things into her bag, which provides the victory. Perfect. We like it. The only issue I had with that was that the backpack was not easy to get. Now, for competitive play, the backpack not being easy to get is not a thing. You just buy it at the single markets. And as it turns out, it's not, as far as I remember, it's not that expensive anymore. Now, how come this incredible WinCon piece is not that expensive? Well, the thing is that it's not that good of a WinCon, at least not until now, in a competitive sense. It's still an interesting WinCon, but it's not that competitive. There was a few tinklings at the very beginning, but no one really panned out on that. So, while it is an interesting way to play and an interesting WinCon, it didn't rise to the level of competitiveness. But still, it's there, and maybe someday it will be viable, and I'll try and build one. The other alternate win condition there is in Alpha Clash came out with Lin and the diminish function. Now, it's a long-standing tradition, or at least a strategy in things like Magic, to try to deck out your opponent, right? Have them diminish, so to speak, their deck until they cannot draw. And the rules in Alpha Clash is just the same. If you're supposed to draw, or you have to draw, and you can't, then you lose the game, right? So that is a real but alternate win condition, right? Now, I tried to build a Lin deck, building on Diminish, using Lava Blitz to discard my hand and make my opponent discard their hand, and then draw 7 to just get cards out of the deck, stuff like this. So, but what turned out is that I couldn't make it work efficiently enough. Now, I am by no means a very good player. I'm a very casual player, but it is fun and interesting to try and build these things, right? I love alternate win conditions. I want to try them out. I never made it work, but someone else did, sort of. There was, and I'm going to see the Progenesis Gambit, but I'm not sure it was there. There was a tournament where there was a diminish-based Lin. Whether it won on diminishing, I don't think so. I think it won on swinging with big, scary 5/5 flights Lins, but still, it was there. It was a strategy that was chosen, and if nothing else, as an alternate, a secondary win condition, having the ability to diminish your opponent's deck, for if nothing else, just to whittle away their opportunities, their possibilities, is fair game, in my opinion, right? So it is there, but it hasn't reached the real competitive levels. And maybe alternate win condition should not make that matter. Maybe alternate win condition is for people like me who want to try out new things. Maybe it's not for the ultra competitive, but the home brewer, so to speak. So, anywho, there is something about having alternate win conditions, and Alpha Clash does too. None of them are competitively viable, but they are interesting and worth exploring. Now, a single note on alternate win conditions. Now, I'd love to dream up other ways of alternate win conditions for Alpha Clash. However, I'm not going to do this here. I am going to tell you that I had the great opportunity when I was for the UK Awakening about a month ago, right? Where we met up the day before and played a four-way gambit, right? So the multiplier format. Now that game is always compared to whenever there's a multiplier game in TCGs, it's all compared to Commander. And I don't mean to do that, but I am talking about alternate win conditions. And it is a little bit like Commander in the way that there are politics and there are negotiations, but there are also really interesting things with the portals that are nothing like Commander, where you can close one portal and open another portal, sort of hinting at someone without politicking about it that, well, it's much easier to hit him than me. So there is another layer of mechanisms to it. So when I say what I'm about to say, don't hear me say, well, it is just like Commander, because it is not. The 4-player gambit for Alpha Clash is something on its own, and the portals, the mechanics around the portals, and the compounding effects you get from closing and opening them, nothing like Commander, but really, really fun and interesting. Anywho, the game went on, I think, 4.5 hours, which is a long time. I grant you that, but the time went past really quickly. I did not at any point sit there thinking, oh my God, if only this would end soon. The 4.5 hours just went by in a flash. Great game, good people, had a blast. However, while we were sitting there and playing this game, I kept wondering if contender damage could be a thing, right? And now we're on the subject of alternate win conditions. Having an alternate win condition in Gambit to sort of sneak up on you would be, from my point of view, in my opinion, would be a really interesting thing to have. Now, having something like contender damage or commander damage, if you like, could be a really interesting thing. I thought about it. Now, the problem with alternate win conditions is that they should be as hard to obtain, maybe a little bit harder than the regular win condition, right? So that should be a little bit harder to take someone out with the alternate win condition as with an ordinary. So setting an amount of contender to contender damage that is high enough, but not too low, but not too high, that is unachievable, it may be a hard thing. Now, what I'm thinking about is that when there is a lot of attacks going on at that in a gambit game, right? But not necessarily pointing a specific way. So if contender to contender damage is not happening that often, as is, at least not in my very limited experience. What is happening is attacks, of course. But if my contender damage to take someone out was my intended purpose, I would be a lot more contender to contender damage, right? However, someone might spot that I was doing that. Now, in order to win on contender damage, you have to deal a certain amount, but you have to do to all three, unless that is a secondary win condition, right? So the amount I reached at is not precise, say that, but I was thinking, and I'm gonna put it out there to you, in a multiplayer, which also, in my opinion, could be a triome. I mean, a three-way, right? Would be somewhere above 5, because 5 is too easy. 5 attacks contender to contender is way too easy. But below 10, because 10 attacks that deal damage. Not if you hit with if a 1-0 hits a 0-1, that doesn't, in my book, count as contender damage. But if it hits with more than that, so you need to buff it as well, right? If you're just there. It's a 1-1 hitting a 1-1. A 1-0 hitting a 1-0. That's a contender damage. Anyway, so if you put it somewhere above 5, but below 10, that would be the sweet spot. Exactly where to put it, I think that will have to come up through testing. I'll put it out there. I'd love to hear what you think about having contender damage as a thing, or just counting the number of times a contender actually hits someone more than the exact number of damage dealt. That would be much more interesting. Otherwise, attack with buffs would be a win con on its own, right? Anywho, that was my thought about alternate win conditions in Gambit, and my take on alternate win conditions. Now, if you like this podcast and wanted to, well, like me, wanted to grow, please share it. Don't forget to subscribe either to the channel on YouTube, just one pack, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're listening to this as a podcast and not on YouTube, there is a YouTube channel too, just so you know. Anyway, that was all I wanted to say for today. I hope you have a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye.